Hello, everyone. I'm Emma.
And I'm Ben.
Welcome to our podcast. We're so happy you're here.
I like these kinds of episodes because it feels like an English lesson and more like we're just hanging out.
Exactly. And honestly, I think we learn English better when it feels like a real conversation.
Speaking of real conversations, can I ask you something?
Go for it.
Have you ever had someone ask, "Are you okay?" And you immediately answered, "Yeah, I'm fine." But inside your head you were thinking, "I am definitely not fine."
Every single human being has done that.
Right? Sometimes I say, "I'm fine," because I don't want to explain everything. But sometimes I honestly don't even know what I'm feeling.
That's actually a really interesting point. People think emotional intelligence means controlling your emotions. I don't think that's true.
What do you think it means?
I think it starts with understanding your emotions and then having the language to explain them. Because let's be honest, most English learners know words like happy, sad, angry, stressed. But life isn't that simple.
Exactly. Sometimes you're not angry, you're disappointed. Sometimes you're not sad, you're emotionally exhausted. Sometimes you're smiling while secretly feeling hurt.
Exactly. And today, we're going to talk about those emotions. Not the simple ones, the complicated ones, the ones that are difficult to explain, even in your own language.
Actually, something happened to me a few weeks ago. Nothing dramatic, but it stayed in my mind.
Now I'm curious. What happened?
My team had been working on a big project for almost 2 months. Everyone worked really hard. We finally finished it. Our manager called everyone together. He thanked the whole team. Then he started mentioning people's names. One by one, everyone got recognized. Except me.
Ouch.
Yeah. And the strange thing was, I wasn't angry. I wasn't jealous. I wasn't even upset. I just felt weird. I couldn't explain it.
Did you think maybe he forgot?
Probably. I don't think he did it on purpose. That's why I felt confused. If he had ignored me intentionally, I would have been angry. But this felt different.
You know, English actually has a really good expression for that feeling.
Really?
Yeah. Instead of saying, nobody noticed me, native speakers often say, I felt overlooked.
Overlooked. I like that. Because it doesn't sound as dramatic as ignored.
Exactly. Let's talk about the difference. If someone ignores you, they usually make a choice. They know you're there. They just don't care. But if someone overlooks you, they don't notice you. Sometimes it's an accident. Sometimes they simply forget.
That describes my situation perfectly. I don't think my manager wanted to hurt me. I just felt overlooked.
Can I tell you about something I do?
Always.
Whenever something bothers me, I convince myself it'll disappear. I tell myself, it's not a big deal. I'll get over it. I don't need to talk about it.
That sounds healthy. For about 5 minutes.
Exactly. Because after a few days, I'm suddenly annoyed by everything. Someone chews too loudly. Someone replies late. Someone asks, how's your day? And I almost explode.
So the problem wasn't actually that person.
No, it was everything I'd been keeping inside.
There's a perfect English expression for that, too.
Really? Let's hear it.
To bottle up your feelings. Imagine putting all your emotions into a bottle. You close the lid. Everything stays inside. For a while. But sooner or later, that bottle becomes too full.
I love that image because that's exactly how it feels. You keep pushing your emotions down, thinking, I'll deal with it later. But later never comes.
Until one tiny thing happens, and suddenly, boom.
Exactly. Then everyone says, "Why are you overreacting?" But they're only seeing the last drop. They didn't see everything inside the bottle.
That's such a good point. So instead of saying, I never talked about my feelings, you can say, I bottled up my feelings. It sounds much more natural.
And honestly, I think almost everyone has done that at some point. Have you ever had one of those weeks where nothing terrible happens, but by Friday, you don't even feel like talking to anyone?
Yes. And what's confusing is that people ask, Are you okay? And you say, I don't know, because you honestly don't know what's wrong.
Exactly. You're sleeping enough, you're eating normally, nothing dramatic happened, but everything feels heavy. Even replying to a text message feels like work.
That happened to me a few months ago. My sister invited me over for dinner. Normally, I'd say yes immediately. But that day, I looked at my phone and thought, I just don't have the energy. Not physical energy, just people energy.
That's such a real feeling. Did you end up going?
No, I made some excuse. I said I had work. But honestly, I just wanted silence. No conversations, no decisions, nothing.
You know, there's actually a phrase for that. Instead of saying, "I'm really tired," you can say, "I'm emotionally drained."
I love that phrase because it's so specific. You're not talking about your body, you're talking about your emotions.
Exactly. Let's compare them. If you say, "I'm tired," people might think you need sleep. But if you say, "I'm emotionally drained," you're saying, "My heart and mind have been carrying too much."
Maybe you've been worrying about your family. Maybe work has been overwhelming. Maybe you've been supporting everyone else without taking care of yourself. Eventually, your emotions get exhausted. There was a time when I was always the one helping my friends. I never said no.
You're a good friend.
I tried to be, but after a while, I noticed something. Whenever I needed help, everyone was suddenly busy.
Ouch. That hurts.
At first, I ignored it. I told myself, it's okay. They're just busy. But then, every time they asked for another favor, I felt something growing inside me. Not anger, something slower, something quieter.
Did you ever tell them?
No, I smiled. I helped. But inside, I kept thinking, why am I always the one giving?
That's actually a perfect example of another important word: resentment. Or you could say, "I started to resent the situation."
Resentment feels different from anger. Anger is loud. Resentment is quiet.
Exactly. Anger usually happens immediately. Someone says something rude. You're angry. But resentment builds over time. It's like adding one tiny stone to a backpack every single day. At first, you barely notice the weight. Eventually, you wonder why carrying it feels so exhausting.
That's such a good comparison. You know, there's something I used to think was a weakness.
What's that?
Talking about my feelings. Growing up, I always thought I had to deal with everything on my own. If something was bothering me, I'd just tell myself, don't complain. You'll be fine. Just get on with it.
I think a lot of people were raised that way, especially when you're told things like, "Be strong, don't cry, keep it together." After hearing those messages for years, opening up starts to feel uncomfortable.
Exactly. A while ago, I was going through a really stressful time at work. I was overwhelmed, but nobody knew. One evening, I met one of my closest friends for coffee. He looked at me and said, "You don't seem like yourself today." At first, I smiled and said, "I'm okay." But he didn't believe me. He just sat there quietly and waited. After a few moments, I finally told him everything. Everything I'd been keeping inside for weeks.
That must have been difficult.
It really was. Honestly, I felt nervous the whole time. I kept thinking, what if he thinks I'm overreacting? What if he judges me?
And that's exactly why there's such a beautiful expression in English. Instead of saying, I shared my feelings, you can say, I was being vulnerable.
I love that phrase because being vulnerable isn't about being weak. It's about having the courage to show people what's really going on inside.
Exactly. Being vulnerable means taking off the mask for a moment. It means saying, I'm not okay. I'm struggling. I need someone to listen. And honestly, that takes far more courage than pretending everything is perfect.
I couldn't agree more. And you know what surprised me? My friend didn't try to solve my problems. He didn't interrupt me. He didn't say, you should do this. He just listened. When I finished, he smiled and said, that sounds really hard. I can understand why you've been feeling this way.
How did that make you feel?
Honestly, lighter. It felt like someone finally understood me. Not because my problems disappeared, but because someone acknowledged how I felt.
That's another wonderful expression. You can say, I felt validated.
Validated. That's a word I wish I'd learned years ago.
To feel validated means someone lets you know that your feelings are real and understandable. They're not saying you're right. They're saying your emotions make sense. There's a big difference.
Exactly. Sometimes we don't need advice. We don't need solutions. We just need someone to say, I understand why you feel that way. You know, that reminds me of something. People often confuse sympathy and empathy. I used to think they meant the same thing.
A lot of people do, but they're actually very different. Imagine your friend tells you they've had a terrible day. If you simply say, I'm sorry to hear that, that's sympathy. You're expressing kindness.
Which is still nice.
Absolutely. But empathy goes one step further. Empathy says, I can imagine how difficult that must have been for you. Or, I understand why you're feeling that way. It's not just feeling sorry for someone, it's trying to understand their experience.
I like that. It's almost like saying, I'm here with you, instead of, I'm looking at your problem from a distance.
Exactly. Empathy isn't about having the perfect words. Sometimes it's just listening without interrupting, without judging, without trying to fix everything immediately. Just being present.
You know what's funny? When I finally opened up to my friend, he barely spoke. But somehow, that was exactly what I needed.
Sometimes silence filled with empathy is more powerful than 100 pieces of advice.
So today, we've learned something much bigger than vocabulary.
We've learned that emotional intelligence isn't about hiding your emotions. It's about understanding them, expressing them honestly, and creating space for other people to do the same.
Sometimes, all it takes is finding the right words to describe what you're feeling. And when you can express yourself clearly, it's easier for others to understand you too.
We hope today's conversation gave you some new English expressions that you'll actually use in real life, not just remember for a lesson.
Now we'd love to hear from you. Which expression from today's episode connected with you the most?
Share it with us in the comments. And if there's an emotion you've always found difficult to express in English, let us know.
If you enjoyed hanging out with us today, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who's learning English too.
Thanks so much for listening. Take care of yourselves, keep practicing your English, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you never miss a new episode.
We'll be back with more real conversations, useful English, and everyday expressions to help you speak with confidence.